So I'm doing a challenge to read all the Harvard classics before the end of 2022. I just finished volume 3, and so I'm going to talk about Milton's prose. In volume 3, they have Milton's Areopagitica, and also a letter that he wrote about education. So Milton's best known, obviously, for poetry, but he did do some prose. So Areopagitica, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, is a political essay that he wrote. It's arguments against having to license publishers and printed materials. So essentially, it's an argument against censorship. The British government was proposing to essentially censor books it didn't like. And Milton is very opposed to this. He compares it to the Spanish Inquisition. He points out a bunch of moral and political difficulties with it. He talks about how an intelligent and virtuous person, something that I liked in it is he talks about how an intelligent and virtuous person can find value and good even in bad literature, and that a bad person will find bad things even in good literature. And he even pointed out how people have done that with the Bible, that there have been bad people who have gotten worse because of things that they justify with the Bible. And there have been good people who have gotten good lessons even from smutty, horrible literature. Anyways, I thought that was interesting. It's obviously that Milton is extremely well read, and he enjoys long, complex sentences. Each of those sentences was about half of a page or a third of a page. It was much easier to understand if I read it out loud as opposed to in my head. It was easy to get lost, but if you read it out loud, it was very poetic and very good imagery and very nice language, but it was not kind of the modern prose that you're trying to get to the point quickly. He was trying to evoke a feeling, and you could tell that. With Milton's On Education, it was similar. It wasn't as flowery or as, it wasn't as flowery or as long-winded, perhaps, as the argument about licensing. It was just a personal letter, so maybe that's why. But some things that I took away is that Milton expects a surprising amount from young men. One of the lines that I found was found interesting. So Milton proposes a boarding school set up essentially from the ages of 12 to 21. As part of that, he expects them to learn Latin, Greek, Italian, Syriac, Aramaic, Chaldean, like at least 5 or 6 languages. And it's interesting, he has a line in there that's really funny where he says, in any odd hour they can pick up Italian. He seems to overestimate both young men's enthusiasm for learning and also their ability to pick up languages. I have no doubt that would have been a great setup for Milton himself, because he was obviously a linguistic genius in lots of ways, but I think that, I don't know if it would have worked, and it hasn't been implemented, so I guess we won't know unless someone decides to implement Milton's scheme. But his education had strong focuses on languages and character development, which I thought was interesting. The last part of volume 3 was Thomas Browne's essay on religion, and I found it interesting that it was published without his knowledge. At first, someone grabbed some version that he had shared with someone else and published it without his knowledge, which I find very surprising and obviously wouldn't happen today. But I thought that the story behind it was interesting. And it's decent prose. It's very good imagery. Again, it's longish sentences, not as long and flowery as Milton, but it's meant to evoke an image more so than get to the point quickly. And then also, something that stuck out to me that I thought was interesting was he mentioned that everyone believes that they're in the last days. And that's an observation that I had, that pretty much everyone throughout time feels like that the Armageddon is approaching and soon. And I think it's true.